Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Asheville City Council meeting. If you could just take a moment and silence your cell phones. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have one proclamation tonight, and Councilmember Brian Hayes is going to deliver that proclamation, and I see Franzi is here and your team, so bring them all up to please receive this proclamation. Plus, because you're all wearing the gear too, we have to see the gear on the cameras. Everyone always tries to go as far away from me.
Okay. I'm happy to be making this proclamation tonight. Locally owned independent businesses are dear to my heart. I frequent them, almost never walk into a chain store without any option. So I'm happy to be reading this tonight. Whereas the City of Asheville is proud to join with Asheville Grown and the Asheville Downtown Association in supporting and celebrating Asheville's locally owned independent businesses and the positive impact that they have on the city's culture, economy, and character. And whereas by choosing local first and supporting the Love Asheville, Go Local movement, Asheville's residents and visitors embrace our unique, vibrant community and advocate for the place-based businesses that keep us from becoming Anywhere USA and encourage a strong sense of pride in our community. And whereas by supporting the Love Asheville, Go Local movement, we create greater access to prosperity for all, the multiplier effect of both residents and visitors choosing local first creates diverse job opportunities, greater civic engagement, and protects us from the effects of economic downturns. And whereas by supporting the Love Asheville, Go Local movement, we keep money circulation in the local economy. For every dollar spent at a local independent business, up to 3 times more gets circulated back into our community compared to when spent at a national chain store. And whereas by supporting the Love Asheville, Go Local movement, Asheville promotes and encourages increased entrepreneurship and access to ownership, which attracts new talent and in turn enhances the local economy. And whereas by supporting the Love Asheville, Go Local movement, we grow a healthy and happy community. Studies show that those who live in communities where local independent businesses are the norm are healthier and thus happier. And now, therefore, I, Esther Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim December 2018 as Love Asheville Buy Local Month in the City of Asheville and urge all the citizens to join in this celebration and to go local, buy local, and think local first, then, and throughout the year.
Thank you so much, City Council. This is very special for all of us, and we've been doing this, been doing the Love Asheville Go Local campaign since 2009, so almost 10 years. But we, by far, were not the first to do this. There have been so many organizations to really drive the local movement, the local economy in Asheville for so long, long before we were, including our independent media, which is so crucial for a community to have, and we're lucky to have them. And I want to mention some of those organizations, including Asheville Downtown Association, Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, Green Opportunities, AB Tech, there's so many, ASAB, Asheville Sustainable Agriculture Project, West Asheville Business Association, River Arts District Artists, and just you know all these organizations, and they have helped our local economy grow. They've helped entrepreneurs, and we need to open up more opportunity for access to ownership for more people. It's so important in our community, and that's what makes our community special. It makes Asheville have the culture we have, and makes all of us love the city that we live in. So thank you so much. You guys really appreciate it. This means a lot.
Okay, thank you. That's the only proclamation we have on our agenda tonight. We have a not controversial but sort of exciting consent agenda tonight. I don't know if anyone wants to highlight any of the items on here. Yes. Yes, Julie. Julie's like, of course I do. Yes. Of course I do.
So I want to highlight an issue that, an item, there's the word, that got added just maybe yesterday or this morning, and it's item L on the agenda. It's a resolution relating to I-26. As I think we announced at the last meeting, NCDOT is holding a public hearing next Tuesday, so a week from tonight, on the newest version and probably super close to final maps for the I-26 connector project. This will be one of two final public hearings, the other to happen early next year. And so there is a public comment period open, and we thought it appropriate for the city to make public comment on the maps. So the resolution that you have in front of you or on the agenda is reflective of the city's comments. And I'll just say, and this is reflected in the resolution, I'll remind everybody that 2.5 years ago, actually it was almost exactly 3 years ago, in December of 2015, that we adopted a resolution, our last resolution before a public hearing that DOT had on the draft environmental impact statement. And in that resolution, we called on DOT to make a number of, not necessarily specific changes, but we highlighted a number of things that we wanted to be different in the project. And we called on DOT to form a working group with the city to help address that whole raft of concerns. And they did that, and we have been working together for 2.5 years. The city's team that has been part of that effort includes the Vice Mayor, Gwen Whistler, and myself, our Director of Transportation, Ken Putnam, our Planning Director, Todd Okola-Chaney, Bruce Emery, who was at the time the chair of our Multimodal Commission and still serves on our Multimodal Commission, Dwayne Barton, who represents specifically the Burt Street neighborhood, but also neighborhoods in general, and then Alan McGwen, who was a founding board member of the Asheville Design Center, which has had a huge influence on this project for the last 10 years. And so that team has been working with DOT for the last 2.5 years to try to accomplish a number of the goals that the city had around this project. And I'm happy to say that a lot of those goals are accomplished. A lot of the things that we wanted to see in the project are in the project. And starting with the fact that the DOT selected alternative 4B as the preferred alternative. That was one of the two alternatives that the city endorsed in that selection process. The bike and pedestrian infrastructure is significantly improved. DOT has gone with a 6-lane alternative in West Asheville as opposed to an 8-lane alternative. That was also something that was very important for the city. So there have been a lot of new things. It is a much better, much improved Amboy Road interchange, Amboy Brevard Road interchange, and basically through all of that work, there are about 50 fewer houses and businesses being taken as a result of this project, and that is very significant. So all of that work has been good, but we are not done yet. You may remember that the city about 1.5 years ago hired a consultant to help us in our conversations with DOT. That consultant, again, working with the city's team, has come up with a set of recommendations, particularly around the Patton Avenue corridor and the design of that corridor, and particularly how the new interstate intersects with the Patton Avenue corridor. And DOT has yet to commit to adopting the recommendations that are part of that report. And that report is linked on the online agenda. It's the Schwartz report. It's referenced in the resolution, and it's there for you all to read if you like. It actually has a great history of the project and a lot of the input that's gone into this project. So I commend it to you. It also has a lot of renderings of the designs that the city wants for the Bowen Bridge and Patton Avenue to really help the city achieve its vision, its long-time vision for this corridor. So what this resolution does is it basically says to DOT, thank you very much for working with us, for addressing a lot of the concerns, for making a lot of the changes that we've asked for, but we're not there yet, and we need you to make this final set of changes as part of this project so that the city can really realize it's the full vision for this corridor, and so that this project can fully benefit the people who live here as opposed to the people who are traveling through. I think that's what I have to say. Gwen, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay. And Ken, anything you'd like to add to that? And I just want to call out Ken and his leadership on this project. You've done a really great job and positioned the city well. So again, we're just calling on NCDOT to help us kind of close the gap here and make these final few changes. And also hope everyone can attend the meeting, the hearing next Tuesday. There's an open house from, I believe it's 4 to 6:30 at the Renaissance Hotel to look at the maps. DOT folks will be on hand to answer questions, and then the public hearing actually starts at 7. All right, that's it.
And does anyone want to highlight the memorandum of understanding that we're entering into with Homeward Bound regarding 29 Oak Hill Drive? This is housing for chronically homeless persons.
Yeah.
It went through HCD, I assume.
It did. Yeah, I'm happy to do that too. So this is a piece of property that the city acquired several months ago. It was a project. It was a parcel that the city had supported through a housing trust fund grant, an affordable housing development several years ago. I think it predated probably most of us on council. That project didn't end up going, and the property owner and developer made that property available to the city to reacquire so that we could continue to make it available for affordable housing. And that was great that he did that as opposed to just putting it back on the open market. So the city staff has been in conversations with Homeward Bound since that time about specifically doing a project on this parcel to house our hardest to house homeless. That's a list of people. It's about 180 people, and we know them all by name. And this development would house about 80 of those folks. So this would be a huge step toward eliminating our chronically homeless people in our community. Homeward Bound manages one of these types of developments right now. It's the Woodfin down on North Market Street, and have found it to be incredibly successful in sort of providing housing and wrapping services around these very challenged folks to give them a chance at a stable life. And so the city wants to partner with Homeward Bound to do that with this larger development, again, that would house about 80 folks, again, wrapping them around, wrapping services around them to help them get to a point of stability. So this is simply sort of, let's keep going with those conversations. It doesn't commit the city to anything in terms of housing trust fund grant or anything else, but it's a great step.
And just one little added note, that's homelessness, of course, but that's at or below 50% of the area median income. Okay,
and just a couple other items of note. Fire trucks are very expensive, and we received a grant to replace the Sparky the dog costume, so that's all on your consent agenda. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the motion to approve the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have 3 presentations tonight. The first is Health Engagement Leading to Prevention, and Kathy Avery is going to make that presentation. Kathy, did we surprise you? No. Welcome.
Looks good.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be here. My name is Kevin Rumley, and I'm the coordinator for the Buncombe County Veterans Treatment Court. And we were just really wanting to begin a conversation. Something that's come to our attention. We are a coalition really of clinicians, community health workers, RNs, and with our host of experience working in the community and just hanging out as friends, we've noticed this kind of recurring problem that we in Asheville do an amazing job with the Housing First model, and we believe in that, but the follow-up care and support that a lot of these high-risk individuals that may live with severe and persistent mental illness, the support is not always adequate. We have great assertive community treatment teams, we have wonderful resources, but we're really just here to introduce ourselves as just a coalition of passionate people wanting to problem solve. Thought we'd come talk to the city council today, say hello. We're calling ourselves HELP, which is
Health Engagement Leading to Prevention. I'm Kathy Avery. I'm the nurse with ABIPA, the Asheville Buncombe Institute of Parity Achievement. And what we generally do is go door to door out in the community is how we do our work. And because of the way we do that, we are able to go into people's homes. They allow us to come in. We get to see them how they live all the time. And in subsidized housing and public housing, we found that that is a situation where we uncover a lot of things that sometimes is being addressed and sometimes it's being addressed in the way that our healthcare system is put together. And you know, sometimes when we uncover that, we find that that's probably not enough for the people that we get referred, because a lot of people that I get referred are the high-risk people that go into the emergency rooms a lot and repeat. And so because of that, I find that my long-term way of doing things may not be in the healthcare system's way of doing things, which is kind of short-term. So because we really care about the community, all the community, we decided we'd put our heads together and see if we could come up with a plan that would do some long-term, put long-term things in place that might address the situation that we uncovered.
And something that we came across were community health workers. And it's an actual modality where you empower the actual stakeholders in the community to be trained as the de facto kind of social worker. But it's similar to the peer support model. And so we're exploring right now community health worker modality, seeing how we can be trained in it, and then working in a specific community, which Catherine's already working in, to work with the constituents, to give them these skills. And it's sometimes just as simple as knocking on the neighbor's door and seeing how they're doing, and really empowering these individuals to talk to their neighbor, ask them how they're doing. So we're just excited for this opportunity that we're coming together to support the community. We wanted to share it here at the council today. And we'll give you a quick overview of our team. And
Well, we have a physician that we kind of work with, and he's kind of a community guy anyway, Dr. Larry Rosenberg, and he is very good at working with ABCCM. He volunteers a lot with them. He still practices and sees patients that he's been seeing forever, some probably 80 or 90 years old. So he is definitely a community guy. So we pulled him in to help us if we need anybody to back us up medically. And then we have Frank Casablanco, who it works at Mayheck, but he's also on the board of ABIPA. And if we need those type of skills, or someone to call up and say, hey, we're looking at this, what do you think? You know, that's somebody we can call on for that. Then, of course, myself, and I'm the project manager because I'm the one that's always going out and covering all this stuff. So I get to be the one who tries to figure out a plan and then try to execute the plan, and then try to find people to bring in to actually work with us. And then Kevin, as you can see, is with the Veterans Court, and so he finds a lot of people that need shelter and homes and places to be. And so he was perfect to team up with me so that we could unwrap this project and these problems that we're coming across. And then we have Stephanie Stewart, who works at Land to Sky, but she's also in our pilot program at Asheville Terrace. And at Asheville Terrace, she's already trained community health workers. Because one of the things we've done at ABIPA was teamed up in Raleigh with a lot of people to do the work for community health workers. We brought that program together throughout, and we are actually presenting it to the state pretty soon so that we can actually make this a sustainable type job for community health workers with a living wage, so that they can come out and work and engage with us in this project that we have, so that if we go into subsidized housing, if we go into the apartment complex and we find people who may have fallen through the crack or not getting the type care on an ongoing basis that we see, we can at least, one of our other projects is Everyday Details, people helping people, that we have the Isaac Coleman grant for. And what we do with that project is go into the homes, clean the homes, whatever needs to be done if they're getting ready to get evicted, because we can't help with their mental health and their physical health and all the things that we find if that's not the first problem. The first problem may be the manager is getting ready to throw them out because of their mental health issues and their cognitive dysfunction. They may not be able to do what they need to do. So if that's the case and they get evicted, then you're just going around and around in circles while we're trying to keep up with them to work on their mental health problems. And so that's one of the problems that we face. So the other pilot program is over in Arrowhead, and that's where we have found a whole lot of people that need a whole lot of help. And one of the people we pulled into our project is the service coordinator. Her name is Shauna Roberts, and she has been really good with helping us, calling us if someone's getting ready to get evicted, and then we get back in that circle, and she says, can your team come over and clean? And I'm usually working with them, trying to get them mental health care, get food, whatever it is they need. But then the problem becomes, we don't want you to get evicted, because then I have to get back and start over again and trying to find help for you. So we want to try to keep them and keep the managers helping us, keep them where they are until we can get them to help. And it may be long term, but if they're just going around and around in the system, then that doesn't help us, and it doesn't help you, it doesn't help the community, it doesn't help anybody. So we talk about that.
This is what we've identified it as, the revolving door syndrome. And we've kind of seen it in our field. I've seen it with the veterans. So we have the highest homeless rate of veteran, the highest population of homeless veterans in the state. We have amazing services here. ABCCM's doing incredible work. Homeward Bound is doing amazing work, as was highlighted earlier. We're grateful for that. They've supported the Veterans Court out immeasurably. But it's really just kind of that continued care. And we wanted to explore together with Asheville just a new way of really supporting our high-risk community members. And this is just the early stage, so we wanted to invite this continued conversation with the City Council and maybe, just continue the conversation down the road.
Because one of the things that we've also found, and when people are in subsidized housing, or, you have your elderly and disabled, sometimes the elderly's crime is they need help with their rent, and they go into subsidized housing because they can't afford their home anymore, and maybe they're disabled. But if you have people that have mental health and problems and substance abuse problems and alcohol problems and mental health problems and those kind of things that are not getting the help they need, then it sometimes make an unsafe environment for those people who just need a place where they can afford. So what we want to do is be able as a team to make it safe and enjoyable for everyone, because put yourself in an elderly's place, which I happen to be one of, and if I lost my home and had to go into subsidized housing, I would want to be able to come out of my house safely every day and live. And if I, God forbid, became homeless, I would still want someone to address my mental health problems and to help me stay in my home where someone found for me and with the right living conditions and the right way to live. And that takes time. And sometimes people don't have time and they don't have the resources that they need. So as we said, we're starting with these 2 apartment complexes, and where we're trying to just build what we know will work, and then have that something that we can use as a pilot to bring out and maybe get others on board to help us so that we can all as a community address this problem. Got any questions? I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Next up is the results of the disparity study, and I've got Brenda Mills is going to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I will not be making a presentation. That will be done by Samir Bawa, who is the Managing Director with BBC Research and Consulting. But I want to do a couple of things. I want to look you in the eye and thank you for the funding for this project. It had been almost 25 years since we had done that study. We are now current. We know what our marketing place is. We know what our percentage goals are. And now we can start from here to work at those next steps of how we're going to increase minority participation within the city. I also want to let you know our internal staff are going to be meeting to start looking at some of the bare bones of the plan. This will be a public process of which we will go out and be taking comments from the public, the open city hall, anything that we can do to get feedback on that. So we're looking at another couple of months before you see that come back to you. And I also would be remiss if I did not thank the over 14 departments who allowed us to have functional leads, department directors. We pulled almost 1,000 contracts. We had to pull contracts, we had to get subcontractor data, which took us months. But they were champions, they did it with a smile. We had a couple of hitches with the data pulling out of our Munis system, which kind of threw us off. But BBC has done what they told us that they were going to do because we wouldn't have accepted anything else. And I learned through the process what we need to be, some more things that we need to be doing. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Samir Bauer. He's going to come up and do the presentation, and then I'll welcome any comments after the presentation is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And thank you for having me here tonight. I hope I can briefly summarize our year's worth of work in the 10 minutes, but of course, as questions come up, I'm interested in hearing those from you all. So the primary objective of the disparity study was to answer one fundamental question, which is, do minority and woman-owned businesses face any barriers as part of the city's contracting? In addition to assessing that question a variety of different ways, we also wanted to help the city make refinements to its minority business plan in a way that is in compliance with legal standards. And that includes both relevant case law as well as the strict scrutiny standard of constitutional review. The study itself was made up of a large collection of both quantitative and qualitative research tasks. In the spirit of time, I'm just going to focus in on results from what we consider the core of those tasks, which is what we call the utilization, availability, and disparity analyses, as well as presenting some consideration for the city in making refinements to its minority business plan. So to begin, the first of those tasks, what we call the utilization analysis, is really designed to simply measure the percentage of dollars that actually went to minority and woman-owned businesses during our study period, which is all of the contracts that the city awarded between July 1st, 2012 and June 30th, 2017. We collected and compiled a great deal of information the city maintains on the contracts that are awarded during that study period, and then also went out into the field and conducted primary research to confirm basic information about the vendors that actually did that work and won those contracts. The results of our utilization analysis indicated that 10.4% of the city's prime contracting and subcontracting dollars during our study period, or $12.3 million, went to minority and woman-owned businesses, regardless of whether they're certified as such in the state of North Carolina. The vast majority of those dollars, 8.8%, went to white woman-owned businesses, another 1.1% went to Hispanic American-owned businesses, and 0.5 percentage point went to Black American-owned businesses. And I should mention this is in construction, professional services, as well as goods and general services. Now, that information on its own is useful, but it becomes even more instructive when the city has information about how many dollars you would expect minority and women-owned businesses to receive based on their existence in the marketplace, the types of contracts that they can work on, their interest in working for the city, and a number of other characteristics. And that is the primary objective of what we call the availability analysis, to estimate benchmarks for what the city might expect minority and women-owned businesses to receive on city prime contracts and subcontracts. And in order to estimate that, we can...
Just hold on, just to clarify. When
Sure.
it's minority or women-owned, it's not actually...
Yeah, there's actually an and missing in there. So it's minority and women-owned businesses. So the dollars that minority-owned businesses would receive or women-owned businesses. Okay. Exactly. And we conducted what's called a custom census survey to estimate that benchmark or those benchmarks, where we collected a great deal of information about firms who are located in the city's marketplace and matched them to the specific prime contracts and subcontracts the city awards based on the characteristics that those firms possess and the characteristics of those contracts. This is just a quick example. If the city had a contract, an electrical work subcontract in 2016 worth $1.2 million, we would collect information on firms in the marketplace and then go through our database and identify those firms whose characteristics specifically match the characteristics of that one contract, and then repeat that process for every prime contract and subcontract in our analysis, and then aggregate the information in a dollar-weighted way. So the result of that availability analysis indicated that the city might expect 12.8% of its contracting dollars to go to minority and women-owned businesses throughout its marketplace, or $15 million. That availability, the group that was shown to have the highest availability was businesses owned by non-Hispanic white women, followed by Native American-owned businesses and Black American-owned businesses. So after conducting the utilization and availability analysis, we were then in position to conduct what we call, or what's called, a disparity analysis that compares any differences that might exist between utilization and availability for the different relevant racial, ethnic, and gender groups, as well as different sets of contracts. So for each contract set and for each group, we looked at the dollars they actually received during our study period, divided by the dollars we would expect them to receive based on our availability analysis, and that results in what's called the disparity index or ratio. So a disparity index of 1 indicates parity. That means that participation is largely in line with availability. Anything less than 1 indicates a disparity, such that participation is actually less than availability. And anything of 0.8 or less is considered in the industry a substantial underutilization of that group for those contracts. That becomes important because that's often considered by the courts as an inference of discrimination against that group, and can be used as justification for using relatively strong program measures to help address those disparities. So I'm going to first show you the data for all city contracts considered together. So you see a line, a solid line at 100, which again is that line of parity, and then a line drawn at 80, which indicates the threshold for what's considered a substantial underutilization. So anything to the right of those lines indicate parity, anything on or to the right of those lines, anything to the left of those lines indicate disparities. So looking at all minority and women-owned businesses considered together, you see a disparity index of 82. In other words, minority and women-owned businesses considered together for all city contracts are receiving 82 cents of every dollar you would expect them to receive based on their availability for that work. And then the lines of data below that first row show the results for individual racial, ethnic, and gender groups. So the ones highlighted in red are the ones that showed substantial disparities. So Asian American-owned businesses, Black American-owned businesses, and Native American-owned businesses all showed substantial disparities on all contracts. And Hispanic American-owned businesses and white woman-owned businesses showed disparity indices above parity. We also looked at we looked at those data in a variety of different ways, but one of the important ways we looked at it were by industry. So we looked at results separately for construction contracts, which make up the majority of the city's contracting dollars, and non-construction contracts, which are made up of professional services, goods, as well as general services. So the first thing that jumps out is that outcomes tend to be a bit better on the city's construction contracts than non-construction contracts. So the disparity index for all minority and women-owned businesses considered together was 149 on construction compared to 41 on non-construction, which is a substantial disparity. And then looking at the individual groups, Asian American-owned businesses showed substantial disparities on construction and non-construction contracts. Black American-owned businesses showed substantial disparities on both sets of contracts. Hispanic American-owned businesses, although they did not show a substantial disparity on construction contracts, did show disparities on non-construction contracts. Native American-owned businesses showed substantial disparities on both sets of contracts, and white woman-owned businesses did not show a disparity on construction contracts, but did on non-construction contracts.
So for when we're defining construction, is that all the professionals associated with the project, or is it literally just people doing construction? Like, would it include an architect?
It's actually the latter. So we look at the different pieces of work involved in a construction project.
Okay.
And if their piece of work was something you would traditionally consider construction, like building things or maintaining or repairing things, they would be in the construction data. But if it was the design work associated with a construction project, that would show up in professional services. So there are a number of considerations that fall out of these data, and we describe a lot of those as part of the draft report, which we've delivered to the city just today. But I just want to go over some key considerations that the city could make moving forward. So as part of this process, in addition to the quantitative data that we assessed about the city's contracting, we also looked at quantitative and qualitative information about barriers that exist in the marketplace for minorities, women, and minority and woman-owned businesses through both census data, but also one-on-one in-depth interviews that we conducted with business owners and trade association representatives here at the marketplace. One comment that often came up, or at least came up among several business owners, were around contract notification. So they indicated that often opportunities will come up for small businesses and minority and woman-owned businesses that they could actually compete for that they were just unaware of. So the city could look at the different methods it's using to notify local contractors about contracting opportunities and ensure that they're sufficient in making sure that they're touching on the different segments of the business community that might actually compete for that work. In addition, another consideration the city can make is around local participation. So one thing that came out of the data are that a relatively large percentage of the city's dollars are going to firms outside of what we consider the relevant geographic market area, which is Buncombe County and the surrounding 8 counties. Particularly in professional services, there are a lot of dollars going to firms based in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. So the city can look at ways to increase not only awareness, but also notifications of opportunities to businesses located more locally than what they seem to be doing, which is relying, at least to some degree, on firms that are based in Charlotte for some of their work. Prompt payment is an issue that often came up. So, of course, having cash on hand, having access to capital are crucial to small businesses, including many minority and women-owned businesses. Some commented that they're often experiencing slow payment, primarily from prime contractors. So the city does have prompt payment policies in place to ensure that prime contractors get paid within 30 days of the city receiving an invoice. Looking for ways to, one, more strongly enforce those policies throughout the city, but also looking at ways that perhaps they can extend those policies to the relationship between prime contractors and subcontractors to ensure that small businesses who are working as subs are also getting paid in a timely manner. One thing the city can consider is contract-specific minority and women-owned business goals on some of the projects that it awards. So this is a measure that many organizations across the country, as well as here in North Carolina, use, where they attach goals on their contracts, and prime contractors have to meet those goals by either subcontracting with minority and women-owned businesses or showing good faith efforts that they tried to do so and they were unable to successfully do so, that the city would have to sign off on. That's considered race and gender conscious measure, so there are a number of legal considerations the city would have to make in implementing such a program, but it is, given the substantial disparities that we see in our study, it is something that the city could consider moving forward, and is something that's often successful in increasing participation among minority and women-owned businesses. And then finally, information with the study also helps the city refine the overall aspirational goals that it has set for its contracting as it relates to minority and women-owned business participation. So currently, the city has goals of 12%, 51%, and 25% for its construction, professional services, and goods and general services contracts. And those numbers include both minority and women-owned businesses. Information from our availability analysis suggests that the availability for minority and women-owned businesses for construction, professional services, and goods and general services is 8%, 24%, and 17%, which may be more reflective of the current marketplace of minority and women-owned businesses here locally, and information that I think the city should consider as it considers whether its goals still appropriately reflect its contracting and the realities of the marketplace here locally. I want to thank you again, and as well as thank Brenda Mills and her office's efforts in this entire process, and I want to open it up to any other questions that you might have.
Councilor, you have any questions?
I do. And this may be a question for Brenda or Sabrina, but can we require can you go back a couple of slides?
Oh, of course.
About requiring contract-specific goals. Are we allowed to do that around gender and race?
I need to let you know that.
Okay.
So I thought part of the reason for having a study, this study is to help provide the legal basis
Okay.
for being able to
To
do
do
that.
that.
So
Okay.
you have to have the study done in order to establish the environment your city's operating under to be able to specialize the awarding.
And so once we establish that need, is it then?
It has
Pretty much
heretofore, it
did
has
it
now been
already.
established.
No. I'm just, this is a state law question. Does the legislature allow us to do that once we establish the need?
I mean, this is a.
Or does that not matter?
So NCDOT does goal specific, on their projects, they do specific goals for minorities and women. Sometimes the goal is 0, just depending on what they do. We will be talking with them because we need to do some benchmarking on what we need to do. We don't certify a group of people, so we have no way of knowing what that market is. I think there's a couple of cities, I think Charlotte does it, and I believe Raleigh does it.
Okay.
So we'll be talking with them about how do we do that process.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What's our contract notification practice currently?
We post all bids on our city website. When it goes on the website, it is tweeted out. It goes on the state of North Carolina's interactive purchasing system. We've been doing that since 2009 when we did, and then we now have uniform certification. So we don't do certification in-house. That is done, it can be done online. And then we are also, in my role, and now with Rosanna Mulcahy, who's now our MB program person, we do reach out specifically to businesses who could do some business with us. One of the issues, and I've talked to Councilman Young about this, is really trying to identify businesses who are available out there. So that's going to be a big effort that we're working on. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
The reason why I asked that question is because I know a minority developer, and he came to an informational session, and I thought that maybe a mailing list can be comprised of people who showed up to an informational session but actually didn't make it to bid, because then that'll just kind of increase our outreach.
So one of the things that's difficult, and I hear what you're saying. Back in the day when I started this in 1998, I've been in this 20 years, we used to make this book, right? So by the time the book is printed, guess what? You got 50 more people who have been added to the list. So that's why it was genius to have the state do the certification and list everybody. We did get a grant through Amazon, and we're looking at doing a portal where you don't have to fill out this full application. You just put your name in there, and then we can delineate you by what you do, because that's the problem. Finding who does the stucco, who does bricklaying, who does whatever. So we're working on that. But it has to be something that's not people generated. It has to be something that we can push a button, get a list, get people in as quickly as possible.
And maybe, Brenda, you could speak a little bit about next steps.
Sure.
On where we would go from this, because we have meetings with the community tomorrow night. This is the first step in us presenting this information.
So we are going to present the information again to the community. I sent out at Eventbrite. My list for minorities and women is about 400 names, of which probably 50 got bounced back. So hopefully everybody got them. We're starting to get registrations, but I invited nonprofits. I invited nonprofits that deal with business support. I invited community members. And so between that, we put it out on the website. They're going to get another reminder tonight and tomorrow. There'll be 1-hour sessions. Kathy will kick us off, talk about why we're here. Samir will give his presentation, take Q&A. We have 10 or 12 city departments that will be there tomorrow to talk to people about doing business. And one of the issues we've been having is trying to hire for Section 3. So I told people to bring their job advertisements as well. It'll be 1 hour. We'll have interpretation. We'll have childcare for 5 and up, and we will have some refreshments at the Shallow Center.
I think that's great. Why didn't we choose a location that's more central?
Why didn't we?
Yeah.
If I'd had it at the Buncombe County site, nobody would have come. But people know how to get to Shallow Center. And if you know of people that need transportation, if you'll let me know, we will figure out something. And that's, I tried to go in the community where people are comfortable coming to. And I've not heard anybody say anything, but that doesn't mean they don't think anything. So if you know of things that we can do to help with that meeting tomorrow, let us know. Also on the project page, Samir has sent all the files and the documents for the study. I'll be uploading those tomorrow and updating the project page. So all of the folks who have been asking for public information, it will be there. And anything else that we need, we can provide it.
So after those meetings, I think we would like to come forward with a plan on how we could implement some of these recommendations in the study, but we want to hear from the community on things we can do better as well. But our goal is to try to get in alignment with what the community has to offer. And I just want to say a special thank you to Brenda for all of your work on this effort. Brenda's kind of been a one-person show for a while on doing this, and I appreciate your effort on doing it.
Sure. My alter ego Barbara says thank you. Thank you. Any more questions?
Anybody else have any questions? Oh, okay, thank you, and thank you for coming. We have one other.
I don't have any questions, just some comments.
Oh, I see. Okay, before we move on.
So just want to unpack some things real quickly here. So back in 2015 when I came on board, well, really 2016 when it started, I met with a couple of different department heads with the previous city manager and asked questions about disparities and things like that. And just want to kind of refocus folks that are out there in the audience and folks that might be watching where the disparity study came from, because I think that's very important. And I also want to touch on a bit of how we need to synergize this a bit inside our city government. So notice that there were some disparities within the city of Asheville on all sorts of levels. And when we made it to our retreat in 2016, we did our 2036 vision, which everyone up here knows about that. And our #1 goal was equity and inclusion in a diverse community, et cetera, et cetera. From those 2036 vision goals, aspirations, we had some strategic priorities that had some key tasks and activities. And along with that was, becoming members of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, implementing their toolkit, starting a Department of Equity and Inclusion, also forming a Human Relations Commission came along a little bit later, and of course, this disparity study. And I think I'm really greatly appreciative of staff's work, working with the firm on this. I'll cut to the chase about the numbers. They suck, especially as it pertains to black folks and African Americans with these contracts. I think personally we would be doing some sorts of injustice if we actually ignore the fact that we have a equity and inclusion department that was specifically set up to address these things. And I would ask that council would consider having this kind of placed in their wheelhouse for oversight, because that's what they're there for. And if we don't do that immediately, I think we immediately take a step in the wrong direction of not recognizing the importance of what we just did, especially as it pertains to a Human Relations Commission and the Department of Equity and Inclusion, to kind of have this under their umbrella. I would ask a rhetorical question, which is, who does the head of that department answer to? And I would say, it's not the city manager. And so when you start taking on these sorts of issues, I think if you're going to attack these issues with the veracity that it needs in order to meet those goals, especially for 2036, you need to make sure that our organization is synergized in a way where folks have the ability to make recommendations and do these sorts of things. So I would ask council members to look at taking this disparity study and recognizing the reason we set up a Department of Equity and Inclusion, and to kind of put that in under their umbrella of oversight, and looking at who that department actually answers to.
So, Councilmember Young, I totally understand what you're saying. I would love the opportunity for our new city manager to come on board and evaluate this, and because that would technically be a recommendation that the city manager would do. I think she definitely would want to hear input and want to hear what you've got to say. But I would defer to proposing that to her when she comes on board next week, and then giving her an opportunity to evaluate that. Right. I agree with everything that you said tonight, but I think the appropriate way to go about doing that is to propose that to her.
I just wanted to put it out there since we're talking about it now. I think it wouldn't be right for me to go say this somewhere else. This is definitely the forum for me to say that. Again, I definitely appreciate all the work that everybody's done on this, but I think it would just be, and I have a meeting with her next week, I believe, as well, and I'll mention it myself, but just to put it in the ear of every council member that's up here, let's not take a step to the left of what we're trying to do and not include a department that we set up specifically to help us address these sorts of things, and a board and commission that could offer some insight as well from a community standpoint. So I just wanted to put that on everybody's plate, and I will be beating that drum from here till whenever.
Any other post-presentation? No? Okay. Okay, we have one other presentation tonight, and that is the quarterly transit update. And Rebecca Morris is here. And just to be clear, we didn't have an attachment on our agenda, but we shouldn't have had one, I assume.
Correct. We're just going to give you a verbal update.
And it's Jessica. Jessica Morris.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
Rebecca.
I don't know. I know my brain did Rebecca. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Morris. I'm the new-ish Assistant Director of Transportation. I want to apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so my throat's a little squirrely on me today, but I will provide these notes to you guys following this. We just have a few items that we wanted to touch on tonight, and then Joseph Brooks, the General Manager of RATP Dev, the Transit Operations Contractor, is here to provide a couple of comments too, but I'm going to focus on a few things that I want to let you know what we're working on. So first and foremost, as you know, we've procured 5 new Proterra electric buses. The first 3 of those are expected to arrive in mid-December, and then we will get the remaining 2 in February. As soon as we get those first 3 buses, the staff of RATP Dev is going to immediately start training both the drivers and the mechanics on those. So part of the training also includes what we call a shadow service, so that the drivers can practice the routes with the new buses. And so there will be in probably early January, you guys might see some of our new buses out on the road. They won't be in revenue service at that time. They'll just be training, and we expect to have kind of an official launch, if you will, in March, that we're going to be working with CAPE on to have some kind of special, ribbon cutting kind of event. As you know, the 5 new buses are going to help us in terms of our aging fleet. We will have a much better number of spare buses in the event that we have mechanical breakdowns with some of our older buses. And on that note, I wanted to give you an update about the bus that we had unfortunately catch fire on October 28th. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Fortunately, of course, no one was injured in that event. The driver was able to quickly pull over and get the fire and other departments to come out and help put that fire out. There were no passengers on the bus at the time, thankfully. Another fortunate piece of that is that happened to be our second oldest bus. It was going to be one of the ones that we would likely immediately put into our spares. So that is a benefit. The cause of the fire is still unknown. We have the city risk management folks are working with the insurance company to do an investigation, as well as RATP Dev is going to be doing an investigation. So as soon as I know more about that, we will be sure to update you guys. On a different note, we've been working to try to improve our methods of communication. We rolled out a new app it's called Transit App. It's a free app download that you can get, and it is now using real-time location information from GPSs that are on our buses. You don't have to get that app. You can also use Google Maps, and it will now show you the real-time locations of buses. We're also training on how to push out alerts through the various apps to tell people that when we're experiencing service interruptions or just general transit information. As I mentioned, we're working with CAPE to try to identify ways to increase our communications reach, so we're talking with them about potential social media, website enhancements, etc. We have recently hired a new transit projects coordinator, Marcela Moreno. She's here tonight. She's on, I think, week 3. This is a new position that we hired for that was approved in the budget for this fiscal year. Ely Mathis, who was our transit planning manager, left us a couple months ago, or maybe it's only been a month. It feels like it's been forever. And we're still advertising that position and hope to be having interviews shortly. On the construction front, we have 2 major construction projects that are transit related that are coming up in the near future. Both are related to the art station downtown. One is involving replacement of underground utilities, and the second is just the larger renovation of the art station to bring that up to better standards in terms of ADA access, waiting room improvements, restroom improvements. And so we will be bidding, we've bid one of those projects out already, and the other one will be bidding shortly. So we expect to have those construction projects happening in the early spring. Bus shelters, as you know, we have a number of bus shelters that were included as part of the bond. We have completed the installation of 15 bus shelters already, and we expect to put a bid out for another 10 shelters in the coming weeks. And as far as our current focus, other than getting the new buses and getting that squared away, we're also working on getting the chargers for those buses installed, and then our ATP devs working with Proterra on the training. As far as operations, city staff is working continually and having conversations continually with the management company about on-time performance, trying to reduce or eliminate early departures, trying to increase the maintenance from like a cleanliness standpoint, and making sure that our facilities, whether it's the art station downtown or the bus stops themselves, are in good, clean, and working order. And then my final note is regarding funding. So, as you know, we passed the Transit Master Plan in July. The first year recommendation of that Transit Master Plan is very extensive. It's essentially recommending a 40% service increase, which is a combination of new routes, extended hours, increased frequency on routes. And so it also calls for that happening on July 1st of this coming year, which is not very far from now. In order to accomplish that, we need additional funding for those operational enhancements. It's challenging for us right now because if we'd like to start July 1st service enhancements, we need to have, a commitment of budget pretty soon, because it takes our ATP dev several months to staff up for that and for us to get prepared. So I'm just kind of putting that on your radar, that as part of the upcoming budget process, this is going to be something that we'll probably talk a lot about. And I'm going to hand it over to Joe, unless you guys have any questions for me.
I've got questions, I just don't know which one, but so why don't you go ahead, maybe you'll answer some.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Brooks. I'm the General Manager for Art and RITP Dev. A couple of things that we have been working on since our last meeting. We are finally fully staffed in maintenance, so we do have the floor mechanics and the mechanic helpers to help with the buses. We are also, as of October 28th, we installed 3 shifts, so we have people working constantly around the clock. So that was a good thing that we got that situated. The bus status, we currently have 22 buses. We'd had 23, but due to the bus fire, it went down to 22. We do have 2 buses that are in desperate need of engines. One of the buses have over 700,000 miles. The other one has over 350,000 miles. We are having outside vendors do the repairs for us. And we also have them doing other major work that we need done for the other buses. As far as the cleaning up the transit center, we are having our maintenance staff go there 3 times a day, once in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and also at night. We also have our dispatchers cleaning up just before they leave at the end of the day. Missed trips was a big issue that we had in July, which was 539 missed trips. And over the past 3 months, we have reduced those considerably, 55 in August, 34 in September, and 25 in October. So we are doing a better job as far as the missed trips are concerned. We are definitely made strides in communicating and keeping the union up to date. We do have meetings once a month. I have a meeting once a month with the union president. I have an employee meeting once a month with all the employees, and also have a union meeting at the end of the month with just the union representatives.
Questions?
I've got questions, but I'll let you go first, or doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, you go ahead.
Okay. I just had a quick question about the missed trips.
Okay.
Approximately how many missed trips were there due to lack of spares?
And recently, in the past 3 months, or are you talking
Yes.
about prior to that? No, because I'm sorry, we also have, I meant to mention, we have 2 88 12-passenger buses, so that has helped as far as not having the buses.
And do we have any numbers on that, though? How many missed trips there were?
Not for as far as not having buses, 0.
In July, that was a major problem,
Yeah, that's a problem in July.
which is why we got the rental cutaway buses, the shorter buses, to try to help.
And have we had any missed trips with the shorter buses?
No.
None.
And we're actually going to keep the 12-passenger buses until March. Try to keep them until March.
Okay. So just to be clear, we haven't had any missed trips due to lack of spares or
No.
passenger vans or whatever we have?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, a couple questions. So well done on the trips. That's great. Those numbers are all in the right direction. Also, well done on the maintenance piece. That's been something that's plagued our system for, I don't know, several years. So well done that's now fully staffed. Really appreciate that effort. A couple of questions. The new app. What does the new app bring that the old app didn't? Or what's the benefit of the new app?
Okay.
Because we've had the real-time GPS tracking for probably 5 years or so. Or I don't remember when the next bus system, but it's been a while.
Right. So I might not be the best person to answer. I'll do my best. Part of it is because I'm new. I haven't been here super long. But I do know that the new app I don't know for sure that we were using the real-time information with NextBus consistently. Sometimes what you would see was based off the paper schedule versus real-time. And so that's something that we are now pushing out more consistently, and that gets picked up not only by a transit app, but any other app or Google, for example. All of that comes from the same feed of information, which is now based 100% on the GPS.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
There are other improvements to the app as well,
Okay.
but
It also gives you options for Uber, but nobody should take that. Just take the bus.
It'll essentially, just like if you were trying to, in Google Maps, type in where you wanted to go point A to point B, it would give you options for walking, biking, busing.
Right.
The transit app does that as well.
Right. And then the sign that's at the art station that shows the buses and when the next one's coming and when the next one's leaving and all that. I know that's been out of service for a while.
Yes.
What's the time frame on getting that fixed?
So at this point in time, what we've planned to do is to not fix that. And when we do the renovation project, we will have a whole new system of screens, multiple large screens that will show arrival information.
Okay. All right. Super. That's
So
good.
unfortunately, there is this period of time that we're in where I would say that we're not providing information
Right.
at that station as best as we should be.
Okay. We're still doing announcements though, right? The dispatcher's doing announcements when the buses come.
I believe so.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. That's certainly helpful. And then my last question is, we got an email, I don't know, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, saying that there were bed bugs on the bus. And I hate to even say that because I don't want to drive people away from the bus. But
Right.
so one question is, was that a problem? And B, have we fixed it?
I'm going to let Joe answer that.
We had issues with it back in, I want to say March, April, but we also have someone come in once a month to do all the buses. When that does happen, we do take the bus right out of service and we bomb it and we leave it out for 24 hours before we put it back in service.
Great. All right. Good. Thanks. That's it.
Any other questions on that note?
Yeah. Sorry. And everybody take the bus, because it's great.
Yeah, okay.
Get on the bus.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentations for tonight. We have one more that's just for your edification online, our quarterly financial update. I think it's quarterly. We have no public hearings tonight. We have one item of new business, the hotly awaited ordinance regulating the use of e-scooters in the city limits. Ken Putnam, who probably never thought he would be doing this when he started his long career in transportation.
He's like, I worked for DOT.
What?
I think this is a public works issue, not transportation.
Yeah.
My name is
nice.
Ken Putnam, and I'm the Transportation Department Director. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Before you tonight is a consideration of an ordinance that would regulate the use of e-scooters in the city of Asheville. And one of the primary reasons for that is to prevent unregulated use of these e-scooters. As you all know, that we've been working on a bike share study for the past year, and the purpose of our bike share study was to determine if that type of program would work in the city of Asheville. And we wanted to get ahead of the companies that are available and going through the United States with these programs, and the technology changes very rapidly. And when we first started this, most of the bike share programs were what they call docked stations. You go to a building, you rent a bicycle, you get a helmet, and you go, and then you bring it back to this place. But now with the technology, there's the dockless programs, which you just find a bike, you activate it, and then you're on your merry way, and when you get to your destination, you just leave it where you're at. So that was the purpose of our study. And then long about September, we have been hearing about the e-scooters and how they were starting to appear in North Carolina, and we felt like it would be important to add that component to this bike share study, which one thing it would do, it would delay our delivering that study to you at that time only about a month. We were scheduled to finish the bike study in December, bring it to you, and then we were then shifting it to January. But when we took that idea to the Multimodal Commission in October to get their endorsement of it, and they discussed it almost that entire meeting, and everybody was on board about it, then that was October 24th, and then October 25th we come to work, and there's 200 e-scooters all over Asheville. And so we immediately had to go into a collection mode, and we gathered them up, and then, as you know, that once the company Bird found out about it, they told us verbally that they would not put them back out until we had a chance to figure out the best way to regulate them. Then on Saturday, this was on a Thursday, on Saturday they were out there again, and then we ended up with a restraining order.
Ken, when we sent folks out, was that Public Works folks who went out and picked these up?
Yes, primarily.
Did we incur overtime? Did we incur additional costs when we had to go do all that?
Oh, yes, sir, we did. Okay. But most of the work, of course, during that, it happened early in the morning, so most of it was done that day. But of course, that meant what these people normally would have done that day, they weren't doing it. Right. So now the ordinance would basically postpone the use of e-scooters until we could decide how they could be fitted into our infrastructure. And we've already talked to our consultant with the bike share study, and they are willing to do a little bit more in-depth study on the e-scooters to be part of the program so we can get kind of ahead of this curve. But right now we're waiting. Well, we know how much the extra would cost. We're trying to find that in our budget, and then we'll move forward with that. The ordinance would also have a $100 fine. So for every violation, there would be a $100 fine on it. And basically what that means is if we see an e-scooter and it's picked up and taken to a place, probably at Public Works, then in order for the company or whoever owns it to come back to retrieve it, there would be a $100 fine on it as well.
Who would be fined, the company or the individual operating?
Well, if it's the actual e-scooter itself, then that would naturally be the company. But if someone is caught or stopped riding one, then that person would be issued a fine.
In addition to the company, right? Or
Yes.
in addition to the company.
Mhm. And so with that, I'll be
Anybody have
glad to
any
answer any
questions?
questions or.
I just want to clarify one thing. It actually, the ordinance does not require the fine to be paid in order for the e-scooter to be picked back up. That's a due process issue, and
We can't hold it.
right, that we would have to provide an appeal right, and there were many reasons that we opted not to go that route. So it's a civil fine, and if the e-scooter is taken, then if it's picked up within 30 days, the person just comes and picks it back up. If they abandon it, meaning they fail to come and pick it up after a certain period of time, then it would be disposed of as abandoned property.
Okay, if no one else has a question for Ken about it, I need a motion and a second, and then I will call for comment. Any comment?
I make the motion that we adopt the proposed Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19-16 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Asheville.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's anyone wishing to comment on this proposed ordinance, please come forward or raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes, and you'll just need to state your name. Yes. Okay, then you'll be next. I already know what we're doing.
My name is Jeff Kaplan. I'm the Director of Venture Asheville. I represent all the startups and entrepreneurs in town. I want to offer some comments from the perspective of startups, the economy, and the city's future to be considered. For startups, we don't have billion-dollar startups here. We don't have role models of value-creating innovators to follow like bigger cities have. Our local startups need to see what is truly possible. With Uber and Lyft coming to Asheville, we create service wage level jobs for members of the community, but a rising class of wealth generators, our startups, have no ties back to Uber or Lyft. They receive no benefit from those companies being here. But that's not the case with Bird. Bird will be hiring fleet coordinators and field specialists here in Asheville. We'll have people employed here that represent one of the world's fastest growing startups. That brings connections, leadership, and mentorship to our nascent startup ecosystem. We need a company like Bird here to show other startups what's possible and help entrepreneurs dream big. On the economy side, for every 1,000 scooters Bird deploys, that brings in $2.5 million in revenue for chargers. That can either go back to Public Works, or that can go to individuals who round these things up, charge them at night, and drop them off in the morning. So we have an under 3% unemployment rate in our city, where a Southside neighborhood has a 35% unemployment rate. This could bring $2,000 to $20,000 in revenue to these individuals for charging the scooters. Lastly, I want to say this is the tip of the iceberg. E-scooters are nothing compared to what's going to happen when we have mostly electric vehicles on a road, and those vehicles become autonomous, and then our public transportations become autonomous. We need to get ahead of this. We should be a progressive city that welcomes novel forms of transportation to lead instead of being left behind. Thanks so much.
And I think we had someone else here.
Hi, my name is Christy Weiner. I just had a quick question, kind of comment. My ears perked up when I heard him say that he would not only be charging the companies, but a user as well. And to me, I don't know that that makes sense or would be fair, because citizens or visitors from cities that may have these programs, that are more comfortable with these programs, may already have the app on their phone and see, oh, there's one for use nearby, I'll just go use it, and then incur this fine, with no knowledge of the dispute going on with the city. I think it's the company's responsibility to do the due process to get it properly allowed to be implemented here, to have scooters in the city, and it's their job to pay for their products when they get impounded and get them returned. And they're their scooters, not the user scooters. You're renting it for 10 minutes to go down the street, because these hills get exhausting, and I think not everybody would be aware. Like I said, I wasn't aware that there's a restraining order going on. So I think that there should be one fine, it should go to the company. And they do have GPSs, I believe, if I understand it correctly, on all their scooters. So they should know the location of every single scooter they have in the entire country. It shouldn't be an issue for them to notify that they need to be picked up or whatever. So if there's any scooters remaining in the city, it should be their responsibility to pick them up. I think that's just my opinion.
Is there anyone else wishing to comment on this item?
Hi, I'm Peter Landis. I live downtown. I wasn't going to comment until I heard all of this about entrepreneurship and economic growth and whatever. I heard nothing about safety. I heard nothing about the issue of who's going to be driving these things. I heard about autonomous vehicles. I would rather have autonomous vehicles than someone who may not have a brain riding one of these scooters down the street. I think we have to look at what it's going to mean for the people the pedestrians, if we want more pedestrian traffic in Asheville, what it's going to mean for scooters crossing the paths of cyclists. I think a lot more needs to be done, and I welcome the study. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. You know, I have. This has been an interesting experience all the way around, and most of it fell on staff to have to deal with, and it did take quite a bit of staff time to deal with. The approach is interesting. The e-scooter drop happens in your city. We are, I don't know, the 5th North Carolina city. It's already happened in Greensboro and Chapel Hill and Raleigh and Charlotte, and I don't know if it's happened in Durham or Winston-Salem yet, but you know, they drop the e-scooters at Bird Does. This is their model. And their hope is that the city takes a week or two to pick them up so they can gather a lot of data and support their position on why your city is ready for e-scooters. But for me, you know, they dropped them at 4 in the morning and started emailing me at around 9 a.m., sending me waivers and insurance information and promising that, you know, they be liable for any damages. And we did meet with them. They had sent an advance person here. They do use locals that drop off and pick up the scooters every day and charge them. That is part of their model. So we did offer them an opportunity to meet with us and talk with us about what their program is and how they see their service in your city. And I will say, one of the problems that we encountered is that, you know, they would pick up the scooters and then put them back out, and it's very difficult to work with a company that won't honor their word. So, and I spoke with some other mayors around the state that were having similar problems. In Greensboro, they agreed to leave only 200 out. They put out 400. So it became problematic to try to do some sort of temporary concept with them, and so that's why you're seeing this ordinance here tonight. I don't think anybody thinks this is a permanent solution. I do think the future is going to look very different in terms of transportation. I agree with that, and the different models for companies. I think we're just trying to get a handle on it. I will share with you that I personally expressed to this company that my sense of where Asheville's at right now is that we're not interested in another company coming here and using our community for their purposes. If they have something to contribute that will benefit our community, if they truly see their product, for example, as a transportation solution for locals, that might be something Asheville's interested in having a conversation about. But if it's going to add chaos and more management issues, if you were here for our work session earlier tonight, you heard about our challenges around trying to manage the visitor population and keeping up everything from infrastructure to enforcement within the city. So we probably more than most cities in North Carolina have to be careful and be strategic and plan this out carefully. And you know, I spent 10 days in Israel this summer, and I've never seen so many scooters in my life. That's pretty much, I believe, how half the country gets around. And they do right on the sidewalk, in between lanes. And it is, you know, I mean, when you're dealing with dense urban environments, this is an obvious resort for a lot of people in terms of just getting to and from work or school or whatever. So I don't deny that there's a different future for America in terms of transportation. That is for sure. But I think for Asheville, we just want to be thoughtful about how we get there.
I think as it pertains to bird scooters, I think what you end up seeing here is you see two different lanes. You see government and you see private enterprise, and you see, in some instances, we all know how the speed of government moves lots of times. And then you see private enterprise, and the model that this company uses, such as the mayor mentioned, is they drop their scooters. And it's up to government to catch up. As you can see, we've been trying to work on this bike share study for like 3 years or so. And as soon as we wanted to implement something else came along. And that shows you how slow government kind of moves, and private enterprise doesn't necessarily wait. I actually like the scooters. I think it's interesting. I think that will. There's always safety issues. I mean, we have the pub cycle, so you get a bunch of drunk people riding around on the bicycle thing, and so. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think these conversations end here. I think in order for us to move forward with this company and to figure out what we're actually going to do and how it integrates with Asheville and transit priorities and all the different things that were mentioned, I can even appreciate the comments that were made from the public and all the emails that I've gotten. I think it's interesting. I like it. But that's going to be for us to move forward with this company in the future and see how we can integrate these sorts of services into our city. Their model that they use to kind of get into cities is, everybody gets excited about it, everybody loves it, everybody rides these things, and of course there are injuries, there are safety issues, and how do we work through those as local government? How do we integrate that into what we want to do in our goals? And I know that there are people out there that love them, just as there are people out there who've told me that they don't want to see them on the street at all. But I think what we're going to do here tonight will help us at least get a handle on how to move forward and how to work with this company. I think it also should be an eye-opening thing that, you can't move at the speed of government all the time. You can't take 3 years to do a study on something and then the next thing pops up. I mean, that's just how the way the world works. Private enterprise and people that thrive in a capitalist system don't wait for government. They make innovation when it happens, as soon as it happens, and it's up to government to catch up. And I think we need to be more forward-thinking and get ahead of the curve on some of these things. So those are my comments, and I welcome folks to send me theirs.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that completes our printed agenda. We do have several people that are signed up to speak under public comment, and even if you're not signed up, I will call on the signed up people first and then people who haven't signed up. Folks that are going to speak under public comment will have 3 minutes, and you are to speak on items that were not on our agenda. But first, we would like to say a big thank you to all of our interims. This city has gone, administratively, has had a shift, a serious shift. And when the city manager left, everybody had to literally step up. So Kathy Ball has been a fantastic interim manager for our city. And Sabrina has stepped in. Well, you'll still be the interim city attorney because we haven't fixed that part yet. But everybody under Kathy had to shift up as well. So there are several people, and I know Chief Burnett probably will look forward to one day going back to being the fire chief. But we've had to call on a lot of folks to make a change because we decided to make a change. So we really appreciate you guys have worked tirelessly. Kathy, I know this has been 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we all really appreciate all the work you all have done.
Yes.
Okay, the first speaker signed up to speak is Dee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, fellow citizens. My name is Dee Williams, and the item that I stayed for today was the disparity study. Just want to, I guess, age myself and say that I was detailed here a long time ago when the city first wrote its minority business program from Atlanta, the Minority Business Development Agency, U.S. Department of Commerce. Looks like things have sort of gone downhill. I'm not surprised at those numbers. They've been better and they have gone decidedly down. One of the things that I ask you to do is put together performance metrics. You can put those things, you can have all the mixers and well-intended meetings you want to have, but unless you actually have quantifiable metrics that are being met by staff, and I don't know how that is done, being that you're the owner, maybe on some of the projects, whether there's a conflict of interest. But certainly everything that we do, that we looked at, that was done where there was a change was based on goals in terms of how many dollars. Intentions didn't matter. If it couldn't be counted in terms of contract dollars that were actually acquired by the MB firms, it didn't even matter. How many jobs were created, how much bonding, everything was in relative dollar terms. One of the things that I guess modify and look at my life by is Albert Einstein's saying that no problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. If you keep the same things going, we're going to wind up with the same things. All of these things are systemic, which means they must be disrupted with deliberate action. Section 3, we know that you're out of compliance. You need definitive help, and let me just say that there are some of us, I know that there are some of us who kind of are like canaries in a coal mine, if you will. We kind of have either by way of being forced or survival had to make our way in the world. And I'm one of those few that's still around, able to earn $1. And there are a lot of people who have not made it that far. And so the only reason why I'm here is to try to help those folks. I knew the numbers would be down. I know that in 2015, the African American owned construction firms had $262.50 worth of spend out of probably about 45 million or more. So this is no surprise. It's just the fact that we keep doing the same thing. So looking forward to working with y'all. Hopefully you'll have some people in who own businesses who know how to get the thing done. Look forward to it.
The next person signed up to speak is Dolores Venable.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I think this is the first time you ever seen me come to you with a smile on my face, because I believe that we have a promise here at Asheville that I've never seen before. We have hope. I believe Asheville could be the phoenix of the state of North Carolina. I believe that we can be the bird that rises out of the ashes that we have been dealt with. We have been a people and a community who has fought and delivered on what we stood on behalf of the people. And I hope that this council keeps endeavoring on that. I hope that our city staff and city management, the newcomers, and everyone takes the opportunity to listen to what we fought for so long. Asheville has the ability to change the state of North Carolina, become the first truly progressive city in this state. And we can make other cities follow our policy changes that we have implemented here if we go ahead and make sure that we take the new form of city governance and leadership that we have voted for and put that and implement it to a new form of governments that we have already put in place. I think sometimes it's best to leave the past in the past. So what I'm asking City Council to do now is to leave the past where it has laid at. I think it's best that we move forward with the vision that the people of the city of Asheville and our activists and the people here have worked so hard for, and implement a new police chief, implement new policies and procedures that represent the people of Asheville in the form and procedures that I'm coming here to you with now. Because it's not been very often y'all have seen me here this jovial, and I want to keep this going. So I'm just asking y'all to just keep in mind that We are a city that's supposed to be for the people and by the people, just like our Constitution has said before us. So I just want to make sure that we just keep this precedent going. We can't keep living in the past and move forward to the future. So this is a very open and honest opportunity that we have in front of us. I want us to take grasp of this. I want us to move forward to a 21st century policing department that matches the sheriff that we just elected. I want things to come into the fruition that we have all worked so hard for. We have been a city and a people have worked very hard, and a lot of us got burned. Not just community members, city council, everybody got burned in this. And it took so much to get here. I don't want us to take another step back. The only way we can move forward as a city is to not ever take 2 steps back again. We can no longer go in the past that we all came from. I am so encouraged. I want to keep this momentum going. I am willing to work and do whatever I can personally, as far as Asheville Black Lives Matter is concerned, to move this city into the direction to be the city that we have always, all of us have worked for so hard. I'm so proud of what I see here today. I don't want to lose this momentum, because if we lose it, we lose generations of hope. I am generations that were lost. So please keep this momentum going. Don't lose this. I'm counting on y'all.
Thanks, Dolores. The next person signed up to speak is Ashley Cooper.
Hello, council members and mayor. So I also want to build on that new chapter. Thank you to those of you that have served and jostled around, and to acknowledge that, yeah, we are in this new chapter, and like Dolores just said, that we do have the ability to change. And I just want to re-presence what you've named already tonight about the priority of equity inclusion, how that was top on the list. And that what that means is that, you know, I appreciate how each of you, as you serve, you're asking what's going to best benefit our community, what's going to benefit economic opportunities, like you were saying in relation to the e-scooters. And when we apply an equity lens, then we're also adding, and specifically, what's going to benefit those who have been marginalized in our community, what's going to benefit communities of color. And so I just ask that y'all really be courageous in doing things differently, because, you know, while I hear in the disparity study that there is only, you know, so much opportunity of businesses to fill certain roles, we also know that in the 25 years since the last study was done, there haven't been changes. So of course there's not going to be an increase in businesses that are capable to serve roles that weren't there to begin with, and nothing's been done to help to raise up those capacities. I also want to ask, like, when you put an equity lens in front of everything, I hope that you saw the letter that I sent with the chart that I just redid, which, you know, we had this chart that shows this is the window of what's going to minority and women-owned businesses, but it didn't label that that entire rest of the pie was for white men. So why can't we just name where that amount of money is going, and naming the fact that there's less than $2 million that's going to people of color-owned businesses and more than $116 million that's going to white-owned businesses. We gotta name these things. If we're looking at, I really appreciated the way Ms. Avery said, putting our heads together for long-term plans. And looking at long-term plans means we have to look at the past injustice that, I know it wasn't y'all sitting in these seats that did these things, but it was other people sitting in these seats that made it so we are in such an inequitable gap in our community. I also want to lift up the Councilman Young for oversight. The oversight element is so essential. It sounds like what's happening with the written consent, it's not really clear where that is. Y'all voted on that, but it's not really clear where it's at. These important changes aren't going to happen if you just say, yes, they should happen. But we need really concrete things that are partnerships between city staff, but also community leaders who are directly involved to be able to provide oversight for these really important matters that are coming up. And that, you know, these are, like Dee just said, they're systemic issues that must be disrupted with deliberate action. So I'm asking for y'all to please be really deliberate in looking at the long-term harm that's happened, and therefore what's needed intentionally looking forward. Thank you.
Jeff, I had you signed up, but you're good. Yeah. Okay. And then Christy Weiner, I'm probably not saying.
So, Mayor, as she's coming up, there have been two comments tonight that have said that the numbers have gotten worse. Is that factually true?
That is true.
Okay, thank you.
Hello again, Christy Weiner, and thank you for this second opportunity to speak. I just wanted to voice a specific frustration that I'm having, and apologies if this isn't the appropriate forum for that. But Bowen Bridge is becoming a huge headache, I'm sure, to most of Asheville. The Asheville City government posted on September 10th that there was going to be some road resurfacing that would only take place between 7 p.m. at night and 5 a.m. in the morning and would be done by October 15th. Obviously, the job is still not done, and even though they are mostly working at night, there seems to be closures during the day still. And the fact that, it can take upwards of 35, 40, 45 minutes to get that 1 mile past that bridge is just really, really frustrating, even on the weekends. On Sunday afternoon, for example, I sat there, I tried multiple different back roads, roads that can barely are barely equipped to handle their normal flow of traffic, like Emma Road. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. There's no lighting on that road. It narrows multiple times to where only one car can pass. You can't see around curves. There are potholes everywhere. But so many people are forced to use these back roads to avoid this traffic, and so those roads are getting congested. And I just have some frustrations around that, and was wondering if I'm allowed to ask, is there an update on that project?
So the Jeff Bowen Bridge is a Department of Transportation jurisdiction bridge, but we try to help them, reflect their communications. So we can get an update about the project and update our website to let people know the new timeline, apparently.
And they just did put out something today that they are running behind, so they have increased the hours. So we'll be happy to follow up on that.
Okay, thank you. My concern is just after hearing that there are new proposals to widen 240, and this isn't even done.
They haven't even begun.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yep, it's bad now.
Okay, I have Jonathan Wainscott.
Can I use this?
To
show the...
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Jonathan Wainscott. That comes on. Last year, Asheville held a referendum regarding the construction of the district elections for electoral structure here. And the vote was basically on a concept. Do you want to break the at-large system into districts or not? And the voters said no. And then a few months later, the Senate, North Carolina Senate, passed a law with a unanimous vote to do just a thing. And they provided us with this actual map that we can take a look at and see what exactly that means for Asheville city voters. There's been a lot of discussion about how this has created racial gerrymandering. It's splintered the African American vote. What you'll see here is these shaded precincts. Those are the 6 precincts that are have the highest African American populations of voter turnout. 8.3, half of it has been put into District 4, and the south half of 8.3 has been put into District 5, which is South Asheville. Now, the northern part of District or Precinct 8.3 is presumably more white. That's Biltmore Village, and South Biltmore neighborhood. The south part is Shiloh, and what this actually means is that in 2017, the percentage of votes cast by African Americans in that election was only 7.34%, not 12% of the population, 7.34%. And it results, though, in these 2 precincts. District 2 had an African American population or a voter turnout of 16.47%. It's more than double the concentration of the at-large percentage. This does not dilute the African American vote. And in South Asheville, District 5, the number was 10.86%. It's probably a little bit higher in South Asheville because, again, that's taking into account the entire 8.3 being considered in South Asheville. So this does not in any way create any kind of racial gerrymandering. Now, what we have left is an argument that the voters voted to do this, but I don't think the voters knew what this kind of data was in the first place. And we're emulating the argument of Topeka, Kansas and Little Rock, Arkansas in the 1950s, where we're saying this is a local issue, it should be left up to the local voters to decide what we're going to do here. But this is something that is going to help the African American community when we have a huge problem with gentrification. So I would like you to reconsider this data as we decide whether or not to bring a suit against
Thank
the
you.
state. Thank you.
Tony Walker? I can't see it. Okay.
Hello, this is my first time ever being in here, and I'm kind of nervous, but this is the first time in my life that I ever wanted to do the right thing and become a productive citizen, and I'm here on the issue of being mistreated at a job that I thought and really helped and valued real high, and I was working with the city of Asheville. And I came in and I met a guy the same color as me, and I really thought that he was in my best interest. And and I talked to him, and he seemed like a real good guy. But the whole time I didn't never know that he was a snake, and he was trying to basically set me up to get fired. So what I did at the job, I cleaned the bathrooms. So I would stay in the hallway, hang around the hallway, and just stay in the hallway until maybe it's time to clean the bathrooms again. So the guy came to me and was like, well, you don't have to just stand right here. You can walk around downtown for an hour or two and just come back and make a round and do it again. So I trusted the guy enough not to question, because I thought he was looking for my best interest. And then next thing I know, when he found out that that's what I was doing, he called the boss man and told him that I was leaving and I wasn't doing my job right. But I even got letters, recommendations of people that wrote me letters saying I have a good job that I do. So I guess that didn't work for me to get out the door, because when I talked to my boss man, I explained to him what went on. But about 4 weeks after that, I thought everything was good, because I just avoided the guy. I stayed away from him, and I just didn't ever go to the break room. I would just eat my food on me. So I guess an idea popped in his head. He says like, well, I'm gonna go to a higher person. So he went to a guy named Harry Brown and told him that I threatened him. And next thing I know, I was terminated from my job the next day I came in. But the good thing about it is that I was at least able to work that day, the rest of that day. But I got terminated for something that I didn't do, because I really valued this job. I really liked it. I love coming there. I was able to practice my other certificate, my peer support certificate with the homeless people. I was able to encourage them. I was able to even be a tour guide to the tourists that got lost and didn't know their way. I would actually walk them to their destination. And it was just a real job, and it really made me feel good and made me feel like a man, and I was able to provide for my family. I just got married June 29th, and I was trying to put my all into doing the right thing, and for this to backfire on me like that, it really hurt, because I was just trying to do the right thing. And I never did nothing wrong to him.
I'm having can somebody help me out here in terms of, I think the council is aware, we are made aware of personnel matters, and so, but I'm not sure what we're allowed to say, frankly, about it, so.
So I was recently, Mr. Walker, is that right? I was just before the meeting made aware of the situation, so my understanding is you work with GO, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you were working with the city as a contract employee under GO. And I'm happy to look into this and meet with you and talk about it. I was just made aware of it right before the meeting.
All right.
So I'm happy to look into this and see what happened.
Okay.
There are some of us that are aware.
All right.
And if I can make sure I've got your number, when you get done.
If you can just step over here and write it down on a pad for Maggie, and she'll make sure Kathy gets it. We appreciate you coming down to let us know about this. Those are all the folks I have signed up to speak. Is there anyone else wishing to speak during public comment? Yes, Mr. Thompson. And Maggie may need to help you load up. Yeah.
Where's your file?
I'm sympathetic to his situation. I've been here before, and I'm here to talk about equity of enforcement on the street that I live on. I said I've been here before, and I'm here to talk about the equity of the enforcement on the street that I live on. And yes, this is the video. There's much more volume to this. It's just all the way up and it's turned down for some reason.
How many trucks have you taken in? You gotta have trucks to take it in. Okay. That truck was parked on the sidewalk. There was the big blue truck that was here the other day when you were here. Was it parked on the sidewalk?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Did you take it in? Because your supervisor told you not to, correct?
No, sir, because that's when I was unaware that I was going to take that.
Somebody.
Actually, reading an email from Ms. Ball and Mr. Putnam.
Okay, so those are the ones that told you not to take the truck. I'm just trying to figure out, well, you already stated that. You were told not to take that blue truck.
Yeah, I said later that day that I was confused with which blue truck you're talking about. There's probably been 100 blue trucks come on this road since I was sitting there.
100. And you haven't taken one of those 100 trucks.
And in violation other than that garbage truck that was right there.
Okay, that's what.
Don't even have to be on this street, okay? I can't go through other streets and possibly miss something. So I have to stay on this street.
I'm going to tell you about everything he's missed.
On this street as I see them.
Yeah, you're ticketing cars on the street, but how many trucks have you taken in?
I haven't had one of these tickets.
You gotta have truck tickets, yes. Okay.
Yeah, that truck, the top was,
Yeah.
that's across the line.
That truck was parked on the sidewalk. There was the big blue truck that was here the other day when you were here. Was it parked on the sidewalk?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Did you take it in? Because your supervisor told you not to, correct?
No, sir, because that's when I was unaware that I was going to take that.
Somebody.
I had to reread the email from Ms. Ball and Mr. Putnam.
Okay, so those are the ones that told you not to take the truck. I'm just trying to figure out, well, you already stated that. You were told not to take that blue truck.
Can somebody help me get a copy of this email?
Oh, it's playing. Let's shut this
Just
thing
exit
off.
out of it.
Oh, well,
Okay,
we took
thank
up
you.
all my time because it played in a loop. I had that set up
So,
to play
and
for
you-
half a minute, but I'd like to show you some pictures of, here, let's please use this. That got doubled up. It was 1 minute and 30 seconds, and I have this timed out. So this is the truck that you've done something about since you've been mayor, Esther. This is the truck that used to sit there from Thanksgiving until Christmas. And when Mr. Turner ran for office, we were able to get this truck to the other side of the building. But these are the trucks that your parking man can't see on the sidewalk. This is the Sunday or the Saturday of the, no, actually this isn't that, but there's his car right there. There's his car right there. He's not here in the morning when these trucks come, so he's certainly missing something. He can't see this truck here. Here he is telling me I can't park in front of my own driveway to make sure that the servicemen that are coming to my house don't get tickets. I have a video of all that if you doubt what happened. Here he is when he leaves for lunch. You can see his little red sign right there. They come in right behind him. I can show you choreographed information of this. He can't see this truck. Here is a Saturday when he's not around. Y'all tell me to call the police. There's where I call the police. Here's the truck sitting on the sidewalk. And here's what the police do about it. They come and drive by 3 different times, and then the supervisor calls me and tells me they can't see the trucks. Thank you. Oh, and we missed today. This is the 18-wheeler that was parked in the middle of the road for 20 minutes. And then they called the police department. Here's your safety guy here that can't write a ticket to this truck. And so I'm asking you for some equity of enforcement on Maxwell Street. And I would like a copy of this email between Kathy Ball and whoever, Kim Putnam and Chase.
Okay, is there, I think all of our mics are now like turned up really high. Great. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, everyone. Amy Cantrell, thanks for your service once again. I just have a couple quick comments. One on the disparity study and the substantial disparity that we are seeing, and I hope that alarm bells are going off, and I hope that we will commit to substantive action around that, and particularly around capacity building and business creation for underserved communities, particularly people of color communities in our city. So that and also looking at implicit bias and where we're going to build relationships to create these contracts. And again, it goes to resourcing, because I heard my friend Brenda Mills say, I've been a one-woman shop for many years, and I've known her all those years. And we need more resourcing of this, and we'll get better outcomes, I believe. And that brings me to transit, where I'm also begging for resources once again. One of the things that we're hearing from transit staff is that we're putting off things because we're unsure if we're going to have funding. $3 million is what we need to fund the first year of the Transit Master Plan. I know you all were proud of that plan, as I was being on the steering committee. I just met with a room full of riders who are deeply concerned and troubled, and I've been doing transit advocacy for years, and I've never heard the outcry that I'm hearing from riders about the transit system that we have currently. And we just can't wait. We cannot wait. We must resource it now. They should be having funds to release an RFP to work on maps and signage for year 1 of the Transit Master Plan. If we don't send the signal that we're going to fund it, because I know y'all committed to doing that, and I believe you. I believe your commitment to transit. We've got to send those signals to begin the pre-work so that we can roll this Transit Master Plan out and get our city the kind of transit system that we really need and deserve, particularly folks that are dependent on that. And it connects right back to disparity, because we know transit creates opportunity, and opportunity turns around disparity. So let's commit to the resourcing that we need. I think you can find $3 million. I hope that you'll commit early to year 1 of the Transit Master Plan. Thank you.
Esther, I've just got a question sort of related to that for Kathy. So I'm aware that Ely kind of set this expectation that implementation of the new plan would start July 1, even though we didn't have a mechanism to allocate new money until July 1. And historically, we know that once the money's allocated, it takes 6 months to roll to prep to roll that out. So I was puzzled by that. I thought maybe he's got a plan up his sleeve to figure that out. And I think part of what Amy's talking about is that the Transit Committee was informed this week that in fact that's not going to happen, and we can't plan to roll out a system on July 1 when we have not allocated the funds to do that yet. So there is, I think, there are some dashed expectations, and I get that. I think I sit here as our council's most transit advocate, but I'm not sure that was ever a realistic expectation, and I don't know. So here's my question, I guess, is, I mean, we don't really have a mechanism to allocate that kind of money outside of a budget process.
We don't have
we don't have the ability to have the revenue to be able to do that. So no, I apologize that that was set up as an expectation, but typically we've typically rolled out services and put them online in January.
Right.
Because it's taken 6 months to plan for them.
Right.
You know, the money's allocated during the budget process, and then we start that July 1, but it typically takes 6 months.
Right, that's, yeah. So I say that not to let us off the hook, because I do hope that we have the revenue to allocate that funding in our budget and to, for those services to start in the next fiscal year. But
Okay, is there anyone else we missed who would like to speak during public comment? Okay, we have a closed session motion.
I move the Asheville City Council go into closed session for the following reasons: to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged and confidential pursuant to the laws of North Carolina, or not consider a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes. The law that makes the information privileged and confidential is North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 10A3. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A1. To consult with an attorney employed by the city about matters with respect to which the attorney-client privilege between the city and its attorney must be preserved, including but not limited to a lawsuit involving the following parties in the matter of custodial law enforcement recording sought by the City of Greensboro and PHG Asheville LLC versus City of Asheville. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A3. Also, to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, or conditions of appointment of an individual public officer or employee. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A6, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is confidential pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A through 168, the Personnel Privacy Act. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A1.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will adjourn from the closed session.